Okay guys, we're going to pick up where we left off, and today we're going to go a little bit more in depth on the use of lighteners, the different types of lighteners. We're also going to talk a lot about toners, and then we're going to go over some of the techniques such as foiling, balayage, cap highlighting that I have taught you in class. We're just going to review those. So starting off with how to use a lightener. There are three different forms of lightener commonly used, and that is going to be your oil lightener, your cream lightener, and your powder lightener. Oil and cream are both considered to be on the scalp. A powdered lightener can be applied on the scalp, but it is actually considered to be an off the scalp lightener. Okay, oil and cream, they are very, very easily to apply. Oil lighteners are the mildest. They are appropriate for 1 to 2 levels of lift, so you're not going to use an oil lightener to get a lot of lift. Very minimal. Cream lighteners, they are strong enough for high lift blonding, but conditioning agents give some protection in the hair and scalp. So cream lighteners, they can lift you high, but they also are going to give your hair a little bit of moisture. They have a little bit of more of those conditioners in there, so that they are a little bit more healthy for the hair. Then you have thickeners. Okay, thickeners give more control during the application, and this is a product because cream lighteners do not run, they don't drip. Overlapping is prevented during the retouching service, so this is a product to help aid you with that. Then you have an activator. Cream lighteners may be mixed with activators in the form of dry crystals, and that's typically how they come. Activators, also known as boosters, protonators, accelerators. These are powdered pre-sulfate salts added to hair color to increase the amount of lightening. So again, you're going to find products that typically say, you know, there's a booster or activator. I see this a lot when you have a cream high lift blonde. They typically come with a booster or activator. I know Goldwell has a lightener that has a booster and an activator as well. It turns that powder into a cream. And it gives it that little bit more of added protection. Activators are used in off-the-scalp lighteners. They also can add to hydrogen peroxide to increase that lifting power. The more activators you use, the lighter your hair is going to be. Make sure you mix the activators according to the manufacturer's directions, of course. So powdered off-the-scalp lighteners, and this is a lot of what you have used in class thus far, and it's the powder. And you'll notice there's different types. I think the mannequin lightener that you guys use is the white powder, or either a light blue. Our Wella, our main, the multi-blonde, is a blue powder that it has a little bit of toner in it that helps fight any brassiness. Hence, the blue is across from the orange on the color wheel. Then we also have cream lighteners, we have clay lighteners, and I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. At the college, I do not believe that we have an oil lightener. That is just something that is not very prevalent in the industry. There is not a lot of oil lightener products now on the market. So an off-the-scalp lightener, this is also known as a quick lightener. Powdered lighteners cannot be used directly on the scalp. They are strong, they are fast-acting lighteners, and they are in powder form. So if we're lightening the hair all over, like blonding it from, slightly off the scalp through the ends, or if we're retouching a blonde, we're not going to use a powder lightener. We're going to do a cream lightener. However, if we're putting in highlights or something like that, yes, a powder lightener is what we're going to go for. So on the scalp use, some of them are designed for on the scalp. Double process blonding just depends on the manufacturer's directions. Off the scalp, that would be your highlights and things like that. They do contain the pre-sulfate salts that I talked about earlier. This is for quicker and stronger lightening. And your powder lighteners are not going to run, they're not going to drip. They are going to dry out though. If you put your clients underneath a dryer, if the manufacturer's directions can call for heat under a dryer, then you may have to reapply over time because these lighteners are going to dry out. Our processor helps with that a little bit more. There's more moist heat in that processor, but still you may have to reapply because these lighteners do dry out. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is time. So processing time for lighteners. And there are several different factors that go into this. So darker hair obviously has more melanin. The more melanin that's in the hair, the longer it's going to take to lighten. Timing is also influenced by porosity that we've talked about several times throughout this chapter already. Porous hair is going to lighten much faster than non-porous hair. Tone influences timing. So the greater percentage of red reflected in the natural hair color, the more difficult it is to achieve delicate shades of pale blonde. So again, we're talking about that contributing pigment. What is underneath that natural hair color? Ash blondes are especially difficult to achieve because the melanin must be diffused sufficiently to alter both the level and the tone of the hair. The strength of the product, stronger lighteners are going to attain pale shades faster. Heat leads to quicker lightening, and that is true. Stages must be carefully observed. That's why you never leave your client under the dryer. You always check. Every couple of minutes, I check. If the natural pigment is excessively diffused, the toner may not develop properly in the hair shaft and may grab the base color, giving it an unpigmented ashy tone. So if you lift past the inside of a banana, that pale yellow, what you're doing is you're stripping that hair. There is nothing for that toner to hang on to because you have demolished that cuticle and inside the cortex. You've torn it apart. It's too harsh. So what happens is when I put a toner on the hair, just say it's a violet base because the hair is yellow, and we put that violet on there where it would normally neutralize, it's going to grab that violet and it's going to get that hair more violet than it is neutralize it. There's nothing for that toner to hang on to. So it's going to fade more quickly. It's not going to last as long, of course, and it's going to look dry. It's going to look brittle. Okay, so preliminary strand test, and I know we have talked about this several times throughout this chapter, but this is prior to lightening. In order to determine the processing time, the condition of the hair after lightening, and the end results. So if the test shows that the hair is not light enough, and you're going to increase your mixture and maybe your processing time. So that means you might need to change your developer. You might need to change your processing time. If the hair strand is too light, then you're going to decrease that developer. Maybe you need to decrease the processing time. Toners do require a patch test. Again, your toners are typically going to be a demi-permanent. A patch test has to be 24 to 48 hours to make sure that there are no allergies. So a lightener retouch. So lightening, hair lightening, and highlighting are two totally different things. Hair lightening is on the scalp, through the ends where we're blonding them. And then you do that double process where once you have blonded them and see what they come up to, that level, then you go in with a toner, a demi-permanent, and glaze it out. So that's what I'm talking about. Highlights are, off the scalp in your foils, multidimensional. So we're going to talk about a lightener retouch. New growth. So new growth is part of the hair shaft between the scalp and the hair that has been previously colored. So just like you do a color retouch, there is a lightener retouch. The new growth is very obvious as the hair grows. When performing a retouch, always lighten the new growth first. The procedure for a lightener retouch is the same for a lightening virgin head of hair. except for the mixture is only going to be applied to that new growth area. A cream lightener is generally used for lightener retouch because it is less irritating to the scalp. You can put it directly on the scalp, and its consistency helps prevent that overlapping. It's more like a thick paste, a cream, once you mix it. Overlapping, of course, is going to give you that line of demarcation. It's going to give you that banding. It's also going to cause breakage. So you do not want to overlap. Okay, so we're going to get into toners a little bit. Toners are primarily used on pre-lightened hair. They are typically used to achieve pale, delicate colors to require a double process application. The first process of the application, of course, is the lightener. The second process is the application of a toner. A toner is going to be something that is no lift, demi-permanent hair colors. They're the best use. Now, can you tone with something that is semi-permanent? You can. It's not going to last as long, but definitely you can. It will work, but if you are toning a blonde, somebody that you have pre-lightened, I would definitely go with a demi-permanent just because it is going to last much longer. Okay, so things that we need to think about when we're using toners, that contributing pigment. Okay, so again, underneath the natural hair color is that contributing pigment. That is what we're talking about. This remains in the hair after lightening. So we learned yesterday that underneath a level 3 is the color red. Okay, so that red is going to be there after we lighten the hair. Now, when we lighten the hair, it does not necessarily mean that we have to lighten it all the way to the pale yellow. It depends on where we're going. If that client wants to be like a red and they're black, then we only need to lift her to that level 3. If the client wants to be a caramel, maybe we need to lift her to that 5 or 6 level. If she wants to be, like a wheat light blonde, maybe, or a beigey blonde, maybe a 7 or an 8. And then if she wants to be, as high as she can go, then we are looking at the 9, 10, the inside of a banana color. So do not think that you have to keep those highlights on there until you get to the inside of a banana. It depends on where you're going with that hair. In fact, you don't want to lift further than you have to, because then your demi-permanent is not going to stay in the hair. It's going to fade much faster. So it is essential that you achieve the correct foundation. That's what I'm talking about. So we need to know where we're stopping the lift in order to create the right color and the degree of porosity required for the proper toner. Of course, read your manufacturer's directions. Understand that over-lightened hair is going to grab the base color. So if it's a blue base, it's going to be that ashy. A green base, even more ashy. They're both going to be cool, kind of drab colors. That violet is going to grab it. Again, it's going to look very drab, and it's not going to hold. Over-lightened hair. It is not advisable to pre-lighten past the pale yellow stage. This is going to create overly porous hair that will not have enough natural pigment left to create the desired effect. Then you have under-lightened hair, so hair that has not been lightened enough, and I talked about this in the last lecture. Under-lightened hair, on the other hand, is going to appear to be more red, yellow, orange, and have those brassy intended color tones. So how do I apply my toner? Okay, I'm going to go through exactly what your book says about the toner, and then I'm going to talk to you about ways that I have found in the industry that are the best, in my opinion. Toner application, you're only going to proceed with this if the patch test results are negative and the hair is in good condition. Again, if your hair is porous, remember it's going to soak up that toner, it's going to grab it. So application is key. If your hair is porous on the ends, maybe you need to do the ends of the hair last. Okay? Application determines results. What I was just saying, your speed, your accuracy, both important factors when you're applying a toner. This is going to determine a large extent of whether you get good color results. Think about it also. You want to have everything ready to go. You don't want to have to do half the head and the other half of the head. You want to be able to move quickly. You need to think about your scalp area. It has heat. It's going to grab. Your ends are going to grab. So application is everything. And that truly depends on the hair texture, the type, what the hair's been through, the porosity, all of that, the density of the hair. It depends on all of that, your application. I will tell you that in most clients, I typically like to tone them when they are about 70 to 80% dry. That is extra work as a stylist, but I also get much better results that way. I can see where I'm going versus leaning them back in that shampoo bowl. If it's not much of a change, or if it's something that I am positive about, then I never, I can lean them back in that shampoo bowl. It might be to where it has to be such of a quick situation that you have to do it in the shampoo bowl. Different toners on the market have different manufacturers' directions. Some only are like 15, to seconds, all the way up to a couple of minutes. Most toners, demi-permanent, are going to be around 15 minutes. Some, like Shades EQ from Redken, they are very quick. I think the top is 2 minutes. So you really have to get it on there, emulsify it, and make sure that it's even on that hair. So you would have to do those wet. So we're going to get into special effects using hair coloring techniques. You guys have done all of this in class. I just want to review it. So special effects hair coloring is going to be any technique that involves partial lightening or coloring. Coloring for special effects can be thought as a pure fashion technique. It is very versatile, exciting hair color service. So the first one we talk about is highlighting. Highlighting, again, is taking those strands and making them lighter than that natural color. It does not usually contrast strongly with the natural color. Lighter colors advance the eye to appear larger. Details become more visible. What it's saying is you don't need to be so drastic from your natural color, but you can be. You can do whatever you want to if that's what the client wants. Reverse highlighting, this is also known as low lighting. This is the technique where you color those strands darker than the natural hair color. Most dark areas are going to recede. They're going to appear smaller. Details are going to become less visible. Common methods of achieving highlights are going to be, the most common are, of course, the cap technique, which you guys have learned, the foil technique, and balayage. Okay. Talk about reverse highlighting. So let's get into the cap technique, and you guys have done this on your mannequin. The cap technique involves pulling clean, dry strands of hair through a perforated cap with a thin plastic or metal hook, and then combing them to remove the tangles. The number of strands pulled through determines the amount of hair that will be highlighted or low-lighted. Okay? And I think you guys did very, very good with this. Again, remember, it can be color that you can use. It can be highlights that you can use. And you use those holes in that perforated cap to make your own creation, really. Okay, then we have the foil technique, and we've used several different things. We've done highlights, we've done lowlights, we've done multi-dimensional high and low with a base color. You guys have done baby lights, which is a whole nother technique. You have done highlights and then root shadowed. So you guys are very familiar with foils. You'll continue to get better the more practice you get. The foil technique involves coloring selective strands of the hair by either slicing or weaving, placing them on foil or plastic wrap, applying lightener or permanent hair color, and then sealing them in the foil or plastic wrap for processing. Remember, just because you see foils does not mean that is a highlight. It could be a low light. It could be, two dark colors. It could be a red and a brown. It does not necessarily mean that it's highlights. So what is slicing? Slicing is going to be a narrow 1/8 inch section of hair by making a straight part at the scalp, positioning the hair over the foil, and then you're going to apply that lightener or color. You guys should be very familiar with this. Weaving. Weaving is going to be selecting those strands that are picked up from the narrow section of hair with a zigzag motion of the comb. Then your lightener is going to be applied to those strands. A balayage technique. This is also known as a free-form technique. It involves the painting of lightener, usually powder off the scalp. Typically, nowadays, we've come a long way since your book has been written. We have clay powder lightener, and what that clay does is it does not allow the lightener to get on other pieces of hair. It kind of dries and it makes a shell around the strand of hair that you paint. This keeps it moist inside, but also that shell dries on the outside so it does not get the other strands, colored that are not supposed to be. The application of a balayage. The lightener is going to be applied with an applicator brush or a tail comb from the scalp to ends around the head. After the lightener is applied, cotton is placed under the strand. Plastic wrap is going to be placed around the section. Hair is then processed according to the manufacturer's directions. You can use paper, you can use plastic wrap, you can use foil if you're doing something like teasy lights, which you guys are going to learn about later. This week, actually, you are in class, so when you guys see this video, you will have already learned about this, but you are going to be talking about foil placement. As you grow through the program, I'm going to go more and more in depth with foil placement and connect those dots with you. The results of a balayage are extremely subtle. They are used to draw attention to the surface of the hair. Some examples of the technique are single, dual, and three-point application, and I have talked with you guys about this as well, and we have actually done this and demonstrated it in class. Okay, so let's talk about toning highlighted and dimensionally colored hair. So you guys have actually done the highlights, the lowlights, base color. You've done highlights, you've done root shadowing. We have toned a little bit, but not a whole lot. We're going to get more in depth in class with that. Perform a strand test to ensure the best results. First, we're going to decolorize the hair, so that's lighten it to the desired level. The use of a toner may not always be necessary, and I want you guys to understand that. If a cool tone is desired, then a toner is going to be required to cancel out those yellow or those orange contributing pigments. Consider porosity and the difference in pigmentation from strand to strand. It is very important to consider the varying degrees of pigmentation because we want this to look natural. Avoid affecting untreated hair by using a non-oxidative toner on the scalp and hair. This type of color produces no lift and is gentle on containing no ammonia. Use traditional semi-permanent color to deposit color without lift. Using demi-permanent hair color, it will not cause additional lightening and last longer than temporary or traditional semi-permanent. So that's what I was saying earlier. Can you use a temporary or semi? Absolutely, you can, but a demi is really what you want. You want it to hold up. No lift, no deposit, color that will not, of course, it's not going to fade as fast. With this, 9 times out of 10, you're going to use either a 6 volume or a 13 volume developer. So the last thing we're going to talk about in this section is highlighting shampoos. Highlighting shampoos are prepared by combining permanent hair color, hydrogen peroxide, and shampoo. And I know you're thinking, oh no, that's a lot. They are used when there's only a slight change, maybe like one level in desired change, when the hair is going to process pretty rapid. So this is a single application. You can highlight a natural color in a single application. You have to be very, very careful. Again, this is for a very slight change. If you're not careful and you leave it on too long, process it too much, don't apply it evenly, then you're going to end up with a bigger mess. A patch test is required because aniline derivatives are still very much present because this is going to be permanent hair color mixed in with that hydrogen peroxide and your shampoo. All right, guys, that is it for this part. I am going to post this in your lessons. You'll have some questions to follow up with, and we will continue. I have, I believe, 2 more parts for hair coloring. This has been a really long chapter, but I decided to break it up for you guys because I thought it would be much easier to consume that way. Thank you.